Hey y'all.
Hey guys,
I'm Amber.
and I am Nate, and together we are To See One You.
You.
So we've been gone for a minute
MIA
on the journey,
of Jesus.
growing,
Living.
learning.
Yes. It's been a minute, but praise God, He's in the time that we've been out and about. The Lord has changed the whole trajectory of everything that we, know, which is amazing.
Changed as in, I would say, like just helped us to find out more about ourselves, each other, the walk,
Him,
a whole bunch of stuff. Him,
ministry, everything, which is good.
But we're back, and
we're here.
We left off with a video regarding the elephant in the room, sex. And we are back for part 2, like I said.
Heck yeah. Okay, so let's get started. We left off on traumas. Oh, actually, we're leaving off on speaking of traumas, and here we are in this video today. Let's talk about it. Traumas in sex.
Traumas in sex. Man, I know for me, I've had a lot of traumas in sex. The main thing for me, and I think it's more accurate to say like everything sex, traumas, regarding everything sex or things to that relate to sex.
Yeah.
Myself, I have a history of like porn addiction, pornography, masturbation. The traumatic experiences that have to go hand in hand with that were something I didn't really think about in the times in my past and my history of like doing it, watching porn, masturbating, the whole 9 yards regarding that enigma or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of started my first introduction to pornography. I want to say it was like middle school or high school.
I think I was 12, so.
Yeah.
I was like right when you hit that puberty stage where you like,
you get interested, and then you look. I remember too. Like it started in like movies and stuff. Like you see like movies that have like nudity in it or TV shows, and you're like, oh man. And then you might stumble across, like I know for me, I stumbled across a porn site somehow.
I don't know how the heck you were doing that. How the heck were you stumbling across porn sites? I definitely was not doing that, but my friends were showing me porn. The first time I saw porn was my friends being like, look at this. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And then and we just continued to watch porn. And I don't know, everybody thought it was funny or something. And it was like a thing. And so I was introduced to it just by, I don't know, friends.
And yeah, for me, it was, like I said, it started with movies and TV shows and things like that, seeing nudity, and then getting like drawn to it, a fleshly yearning for it, I would say. And I don't know if stumbled across is the right word, maybe more like ignorant searching, and then you come across it online, like Googling it or something, not even looking for like porn per se, but just like nude photos or like the picture of a nude scene or something like that. And then you come across like something like Pornhub or something like that. And then you see that this whole network and realm of it's a huge industry, and it just keeps continuing to get bigger and bigger. So for me, that's kind of how it all started. And at first it's just watching it, and then you kind of realize, oh, like this is what people do when they watch porn. They masturbate, or they get like a sex toy and use it or something like that. All of which I was doing, right? Not knowing the implications, not knowing that it was harming me psychologically, even physically, mainly psychologically though. And that's where it gets into the traumas, because one thing that porn did to me was it made me less concerned about finding like a relationship. And when I say a relationship, I mean like a quality, like good relationship. Not like one like
so just like finding somebody to have sex with versus like being in a real relationship.
That's what it meant. It opened the door to me wanting, like you said, wanting to just hook up, wanting to do that, or just if I wanted to hook up and I tried and I couldn't, then didn't matter because there was always porn.
No, that's honestly what media advertises now. I don't need a man. I just need a toy. I don't need this. I just need myself.
And they claim it as like independence, but really it's kind of really the opposite because you're still depending on something.
I don't even know it's dark.
It's dark, yeah, but I'm saying like the logic doesn't make sense either. But yes, it's dark.
I think that going off of what you're saying, that's the craziest thing is because we promote it so much, but want to leave out the other side of it. So yes, as you were in porn, I was in porn probably age 12, friends showed me, Then I became kind of addicted for probably a good year or so, but it was me in my life with the Lord too. Discovered porn, but my parents would never really talk about sex, and we just knew we weren't supposed to do it. I didn't know anything about masturbation actually. Really, I had to look it up, I think. So I didn't really know any of those things. So as I was struggling with it, I think obviously I knew it was wrong because you feel wrong looking at those things. So it's like I had to balance the two, and I feel like over time I remember just realizing I was like addicted to it. Like it was something that I couldn't stop doing, couldn't stop masturbating, couldn't stop whatever. I know a lot of people were doing it, but I knew that it just wasn't right. Obviously a lot of us know that. But so after a year, the Lord honestly helped me get out of it. Like I had to like genuinely try hard. And it's crazy being a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old at the time trying to get closer to God and stop this thing. And then there was times in my life going into, high school and college where I went back to it here and there, but it never was as deep of an issue. But I definitely still battled with a lot of things out of that, just dealing with.
What specific, like trauma-wise, what did it?
Well, I don't want to, okay, I think for me, just in my understanding of how it was affecting me. So I grew up and my family was just always talking about, how you're not supposed to have sex, you're not supposed to do certain things. And that the biggest example that was given to me was having sex or any of those things was like grabbing some tape and taping it to something. And then the more you did it, you're ripping off the tape. And because it's a covenant with anybody, constantly, anytime you do it, it's, lessening the stickiness of this tape to where eventually it's just not, sticking anymore. And so if sex is supposed to be with one person and you're only supposed to be with one person, it's changing. It changes the way that God designed it. And so that's the one thing that ever stuck with me as a kid. Now relating to porn leads you off into your own self-pleasures of things and that, and gets you right into deep perversion. So there were some things I did in college that were even deeper, that were crazy. I'd probably go and what did I do? One of the grossest things I probably had ever done was, I don't know how I met this guy, which, okay, maybe this was twice, but I would meet people and just basically a hookup scene, but it was just so gross to me. Just knowing that I didn't know these people, and I'd be like, okay, let's do this. It was just weird. And so for me, it's the addiction. I knew it was so deep that, because it's almost like looking outside yourself, knowing that before I even engaged in anything sexual, I knew what would happen to me before. I knew that it would be harder to overcome it the more I did it. And I use that analogy, that same type of thing, whether it was sex in itself or masturbation, whatever. I knew what would happen to me. So when I finally did those things and I was led into temptation and did those things, then I was in it and I was crying to God, I know why I can't stop doing this, because I knew this was going to happen to me. And I did it anyway, and I'm in my mind like, oh my gosh, God, I need you to help me, because now I already knew what was gonna happen to me, and now I'm in it, and it's like I can't even try to act like I didn't know what was gonna happen. I knew it, so I was just sitting there like, God, you have to rescue me. This is what it's like. And then I started to realize this is what it's like for people. This is what it's like, where you start and then you just keep going,
get trapped,
and you can't stop. So then you're like, I remember.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I mean, probably masturbate like 5 times a day at one point. I don't even know. Or like constantly think about sex, constantly want to have sex, constantly think about certain things, looking at people, seeing other people. Like, you just start to pervert everything in your life. You start to pervert things. Yeah. And I know that people want to act like they don't do this stuff.
Yeah.
That is such a freaking lie. Because if I'm doing that, and not saying that everybody, let's not include everybody, but I know that the way this works, it's not just physical, but it's spiritual. The way this works, you start to get perverted. Like, you start to get more risque. There's times where it led me into, I want to have threesome. I want to do this. I want to do that. Like, I want to try all these different things. I want to, you just want to do all these risque, out of pocket, sexual things eventually. Like, it just like slowly changes the way you were. You move from innocence and naive to straight
and pure.
Not even, but it's just like straight, like pro in freaking perversion. Like, that's how fast it moves. So it's definitely a deep thing. The trauma for me, I mean, as a kid, I was molested, so I didn't know what molestation was at the time, actually. So I didn't know till I was older that that's what it was. So I don't know that it affected me psychologically. Like, I didn't know. I just was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we do. Oh, okay. Like, you don't really, and it didn't dawn anything until later on in life, when people started asking certain questions. And at church, they're asking certain questions, and I'm like, oh, well, this used to happen, and da-da-da. And I guess I was so naive. I didn't realize certain things were wrong. You don't realize certain things are wrong until the domino effect of all of these issues happen, especially spiritually. Like, a lot of things happen, and people, we want to ignore, how the spiritual realm is not as real as reality, but it's even more real, and that's something that's huge.
Not even as real as reality, but like just the carnal world, because in reality, the spiritual world is reality.
Yeah, right. And I think that that's one thing that is masked in society when it comes to sex.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's also why, like, I think it's hard, like you alluded to, for people to kind of talk about stuff like this or admit it. And that's also what I think we as humans we just have trouble confessing things, or like talking and opening up about things, or whatever the case may be, and specifically regarding to sex, porn, masturbation, molestation, anything regarding that. Like, it's hard to talk about, but I think it's extremely necessary, because when whether you were the person at fault or not, because like in a case of like molestation, stuff like that, like even though you're not necessarily the person at fault, it still has extremely hard and impactful implications on you as a person, as the victim.
It leads you into, like, it led me into doing other things that I didn't realize. Like, in being frank, I mean, I started dabbling into other sexual things.
Yeah.
Sex with women, sex here, doing this. And it all stemmed from one thing. I didn't know it as I was in it. Per se, actually, no, I can't say that I didn't know things were wrong. I did these things and I knew that they were wrong, but I didn't know that it stemmed from one thing, because that's childhood, something like that in childhood, it's like suppressed. So you don't really know the effects until it hits the fan and you're doing all of these things. And now I'm like, God, where the heck did this come from?
Yeah. No, yeah. Same thing for me with porn. Like, I didn't realize that it was affecting me the way it was until years down the line, or you get in so deep, like you were saying too, like where you can't really, and obviously it's as much as people don't realize it's a spiritual thing. Like, I will be the first one to tell you back then, like, oh, like Satan and demons and things of that nature, what is that? Like, that's nonsense. But when you dive deeper into the word, when you praying and make it a lifestyle, you realize that this world is really his playground, and he uses these things, speaking on sex and stuff, to get us numb, to get us
numb to seeing it, numb to doing it.
To make it seem like it's a normal thing, like for people to be perverted and addicted to seeing other people's body parts or private parts and things like that. Like, it's as simple as that. We look over it these days like so fast. We're so fast easily to look over it, like, oh, like, she's wearing this, he's wearing that, and we just walk right by it. But really, like, we're
desensitized to it.
We're desensitized to it, and we weren't really designed to
think about
be desensitized to it.
And wrapping it back around to us, I, on the other hand, am the amazing human being. No, I'm just kidding. That perverted him even more. So I was, when we first got together and talking and things like that, I was probably the way more perverted person. I was out there. I would like be way more upfront sexually. And I guess I saw it like at that time, like, oh, like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about, I'm not worried about my body. I don't know what my mind's frame was at the time. I just didn't care about certain things. And then I ended up perverting him even more before I realized it was wrong. Like, I had like bought him new sex toys, and stuff like that. And like, oh my gosh, like, fast forward like 2 years, I was like, oh my gosh, God, forgive me for like being like, here, do this even more. Like, you're great. I love you. Let me give you all of these things to help you further in your addiction. I didn't even like it's so hard to even say right now, because I remember for the first like year after that, I was like, oh my gosh, I literally sucked. It wasn't until I realized how wrong that was, and then God showed me how wrong I was, because over time, obviously, it affected him and his walk, and it affected him, and he was just getting into God at the time. So he didn't really, I was the one that was more spiritual.
I didn't really even see it then as well, because like you said, I was kind of just starting my walk, so I didn't really know scripture. I didn't know the word. I didn't have a real relationship with the Lord, and I didn't really see those. Even at that point, I didn't really see those things as wrong.
So I was leading you into destruction, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah, but that's not to say there wasn't reciprocal effects.
I mean,
it's not like I was denying it or saying,
Well, yeah, because you didn't know. That's the point. That's what makes it even worse. I knew, per se, and I just was so perverted in my mind that I didn't. It's like almost like if I'm going down, you're going down with me, but I didn't think that way. Yeah. I was like, oh, it's something we do together. That maybe makes it not that bad, and blah blah blah.
I think it's part of the
journey.
It's part of the journey.
Jesus.
It's part of the walk.
Praise God.
As much as like the last thing I want to do on these videos is make it seem like we're perfect or like we.
Oh, we sure aren't.
Man, because
gosh, no.
I don't want if you're watching this, I don't want you to look and be like, oh, these people just, they're
smiles and rainbows
and their Christian life is they just think they're better and superior. That is
we are
the last
literally
thing.
not, and that is the point.
I fight with that addiction every day, the temptation every day. It's not something that is just you overcome it and then nothing happens. So if it's something you struggle with, you're not alone. I think that's a big thing, is like, I don't think people think they're alone, but I also think that there's a lot of justification. I know for me, like, you know what, that's part of it. Yeah, like, one of the main excuses that I hear from people is like, oh, everyone does it.
Yeah.
Everyone watches porn. Everyone masturbates. But, and that was as someone who used that excuse, and mostly, honestly, to myself or to God. Like, I'd be tempted at a time, and I'd be like, but Lord, like, everyone else does it, and like, just this once, it's not gonna matter. Like, but then just this once snowballs, and you realize that it wasn't worth it after you do it, I know that, first of all, even if you're watching this as an unbeliever, right? I have experience with when I was an unbeliever as well, even before I believed in the Lord and had a relationship with Him. After I would watch porn and masturbate, I would feel this overwhelming feeling of like disgust.
Oh my gosh, same.
And
I would ignore
like
it.
filth.
Like,
and you dirty. You feel it, but you're like, you just try and do something to like you do something to just try and brush it off or distract. And then for me, like, that would happen, and then 2 hours later I would watch porn and masturbate again. But I've heard people say that too, like, man, I like but they just laugh about it, like, oh, I feel so nasty after I watch porn, and then like a giggle, which is like, I used to be the same way. Like, I used to be the same way, do the same thing, and then try and justify it and do it again. And really, I think the fact of the matter is, like, I had to realize, and still have to realize when I'm tempted, like, it's so not worth it, and it has no purpose, and there's no meaning behind it, and it's not something that's beneficial. That's the biggest thing. It's not beneficial in any way. It's a moment of instant gratification, because you get yourself off. Sorry for, but that's essentially what you're doing. You get yourself off, and then that's that. And especially if you're like married, that feeling of disgust is like amplified, because you know that you then at that moment chose this over the person you've chosen to spend your life with.
Yeah, that's definitely a difficult.
That's a very overwhelming feeling, and that's when the enemy really, really, really wins.
I think that
or not wins, but you allow him to win, because we fight from victory, not for victory.
No, but yeah, that's definitely something for us, like, in our journey together with him struggling with those things. It definitely affects things. Like, the world can make it seem like it doesn't affect how you're fine, blah, blah, I don't need anybody, I can please myself. If my husband's not here, if my wife's not here, or if my boyfriend's not here, whatever, I'm going to please myself, this and that, or whatever it is. And then you get married, and now you're having to deal with, I'm choosing porn over my husband, the one that I'm supposed to be with, or the one I'm supposed to, like, and for us,
multiply with, like, really, like, that type of stuff. Like,
he's supposed to be the one, like, I'm supposed to be the one that triggers that love for you, that gives you that, and vice versa. So when porn's in the middle of it, it's like cheating. It's like having somebody else in the middle of what God created to be good. If He put us together in oneness and wholeness, why should you need to go somewhere else? And so it can have some really, deep effects on relationships. I mean,
even if you're not married.
And that's what I'm saying. Even if you're not, but it really, I'm saying it goes into marriage. So
yes.
If you start out and you're not married, it doesn't matter because I'm not married, blah, blah, blah. But when you are married, like in our instance, in those issues, when you did have those issues, for me, it's like, oh, I got married, and I thought that, like, I was enough for you. Then you start to question your own life, and am I enough? Is this like,
right? Why are you choosing
this over me? What is wrong with me? Versus why do you care more about that? And there's so many things,
and that can lead to a lot of things. That can lead to division. That can lead to separation. That can lead to basically the enemy being in control rather than the Lord. Kind of in a way. But yeah, I do want to touch on kind of what you were saying. Go deeper in, like, even prior to marriage, because that was, like you said, for me, like, that was where the majority of my addiction was prevalent, you know, from, like I said, from what middle school, high school,
yeah,
all the way until marriage. So I just think that when you engage in that, when you decide to take part in watching porn, masturbating, the one thing, like I said before, it takes you away from wanting to really find that person. First of all, I think you get less of you stop looking at women, at least from a male's perspective, you stop looking at women as for their characteristics and personalities and things of that nature, and you start looking at them as like objects, which is what porn glorifies them as, that you can just use. So now, instead of looking for a woman who was like made for you and has everything you need to be who you're supposed to be in life, or who the Lord has made you to be, you look for like the prettiest face or the biggest assets physically, you know, things like that, things like that, like the girls with the nicest bodies, or instead of, and I'm not saying physical attraction is not important, because it is. I think it is important. But when you watch porn and stuff, there's all these like fantasies. There's all these standards you set that really, like in real life, daily life, one thing I had to realize was that those things make no difference when it comes to being with the person you're supposed to be with. Like, you don't need all of that. It's not anything, like I said before, it has no purpose. It's no, like, they're doing all that because it's a form, that platform is a form of entertainment. It's a form of appealing to an audience. And when you're part of the audience, it affects you. And it makes you, and that's one of the biggest traumas. I think it makes you look for some stuff in women from a male's perspective that you think you need, but you don't. And that can stop you from finding the woman of your dreams for a long time. It can prolong your like your marital destiny or fate, I would say, in a way.
Marital destiny. Yeah, I definitely can. It just affects you in so many ways that it's just like, it is just detrimental. And just the basis of any of our videos are about us and our lives and how it relates to us. It was hard at times. It definitely was hard at times. And obviously it's still something, a battle. Once you struggle with some of these things and you get into this deep perversion, you get into deep things, there's always things that you struggle with. And are we constantly overcoming? Yes. I mean,
all the time.
Where we were a year ago in times with struggling with pornography for him, probably not. We're not there today. We're not. So it's like just realizing where God has brought us from and how he's continuously growing us in the process is huge. And just trusting that God can change these things, because he can. I mean, I don't even look the same as I did a couple years ago. Been rededicating myself back to Christ. So it's like, I don't think the same. I don't have the same thought processes. Yes, there's always going to be temptation. There's always going to be something around the corner that's trying to tempt you. That's not something that we're trying to say. And I really
we're not trying
to people say that as like believers, where we say once you become a believer, now you have no issues. No. You're never going to have temptations. You're never going to do this. That is an absolute lie. We live in a world where it's everywhere. There's always going to be temptation, but you can choose to say no, and the strength to choose no is better. You're like, the Lord gives you more strength to say no because he has something better for you. Like, he shows you the reason why these things were wrong, and the reason why the way he wants you to do it is right. And that's one of those things where when you're doing all those things, you don't realize it. Yes, we, as an unbeliever, I could say I knew things were dirty. I knew things weren't right, but I didn't know any other way. But when God meets you and you find the other way, now you're like, I didn't even need all of that.
I think you can in that sense, as an unbeliever, when you know things are, like you said, dirty or wrong, it's like it's just something or I don't want to say feel, but it is kind of like you feel that it is. You just don't. I know for me.
No, it's innate.
Yeah, it's innate.
It's innate. I don't care what anybody say. It's innate.
It's innate, but you just don't know why.
Why? Yeah.
But once you realize, for me, I had to get in the Word. I mean, it's as simple as that. Really, it's like once you get in the Word and you come across verses that explain things, and first of all, you could read the same verse one day and another day, and it'll be completely different in explaining something to you, and making something clear to you.
I think it was people for me.
Yeah.
Sermons, because sermons get you first.
Yeah.
It's like people's testimonies, people's sermons, they get to you first when it comes to that. Hearing somebody tell me something versus if I'm a new believer and I'm reading the Bible, I'm not going to understand what the heck they're talking about. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But when somebody's telling me their life and how
that's a good point.
How Christ has changed things, it changed me. And that's what got me to where I am today, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is hearing other people being like, wow, I've been changed. And you're like, I want that, but I don't know how to get there.
Yeah. And I do want to touch on something you hit too a little bit ago, was about how, like, what she said, we're not, like, when you dedicate your life to Christ, that's just the beginning. And it's not like you have to try and be perfect. That's something that I kind of wrestled with when I started my journey, because it's like, now, okay, I've dedicated my life to you, Lord. Now I have to do and keep everything you say to a T and be perfect, when the Bible does talk about how we as fleshly humans will never attain perfection. So one thing, and it's funny because I actually tell this to the boys that I coach, putting it in the frame of like soccer, is that we're trying to achieve progress over perfection. We're not trying to be perfect. We can't be perfect.
Right.
Whether you're a believer or not, you can't be perfect. But what you can do is progress every single day. And if you take a step back, you can progress from that every single day.
Right.
Like, until the day you die, until the day you leave this earth, you can progress and you can be better. And that, I think, is where it makes it a little bit easier to believe in hope and trust and faith, because there's always, always, always room to be better, even if you were the best you've ever been yesterday, Right. And in regards to overcoming things, right? In this instance, porn and masturbation, that is something I have to continuously overcome. It's not like I've overcome it and now I can just tell everyone, like, once you overcome this, you're good and you don't have to worry about it. No, that's not the case.
It gets easier, though.
It gets easier.
I can say that. But I wouldn't tell people, oh yeah, you constantly... It does get easier, because once you continue to say no for so long,
right,
it gets easier to...
I think you become stronger is what it is. Yeah. You become stronger, but the instant you let it back in, then that strength weakens again. Yeah. So you have to... That's why I'm saying you do become stronger. It does become easier, but you still have to stay...
Right. Well, but that's, of course, yeah. I agree with that in the Lord, but that's how the Lord works. It's constantly strengthening us to be like, okay, and then eventually you're not going to have to struggle with that anymore. You're not even have to second guess to say no. Now you're just like, bye. Mm-hmm. And then you continue on. But that's enough for today. We are doing too much. The next video, I'm not even going to tell you what it's going to be about. Nope.
We'll figure it out, and then
we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out as we go, because the Lord speaks, and there's so much to talk about. There's so much that we can unpack when it comes to sex. And so,
one thing we do plan on doing, though, is staying more consistent with these videos. I didn't realize that people, like, I know we only, like, right now,
let's be honest,
a little small, but I didn't realize that you guys really do watch these, and I'm thankful for you guys watching it.
Wow, you actually...
No.
Anyway, so...
As many people.
I just want to say that the inconsistency really stems from this guy. So it's not like, I know he wants to talk about us. Inconsistency. Let's be honest. If we're just gonna be honest, let's be honest. You're inconsistent, and I Love you guys. I'm here for
I love you guys too.
I'm grade A. I'm a grade A.
I love you guys too. I love you guys too. And I'm sorry. I apologize for the hiatus. But she has been heckling me like, we need to make a video. We need to make a video. And I say like, okay. But I haven't really been keen on going through with it.
He's camera shy.
I am not camera shy, actually. Actually, I'm not camera shy. Like, being a photographer and now a model for you has made me really not camera shy. So, another thing that I've had to overcome. But anyway, yeah, we will hit you guys back with a part 3 next week. I think we're going to try and pick a day to upload. I mean, Sundays might be.
All right, yeah.
But great. We'll see.
Anyway, who cares? Like, follow, subscribe.
Yes. Thank you guys for everything. We love you guys. And obviously, Lord, we love you too for helping us to always see one you. Have a good one, guys. Bye. Love you.